Today is actually a really special day because we've hosted over 12 Symbol and Key sessions, but up till this day, we've never had someone like Isaac.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because
As a Chinese?
we've never actually had a Hong Kong data scientist come and speak here. We've had Russians, Dutch, Brazilians, we had Singaporeans come and talk here, but never someone who was born in Hong Kong, works in Hong Kong, trained in Hong Kong. So it's the very first time to have a Hong Kong data scientist here. So a big round of applause for Isaac. And over to you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming up. So I'm Isaac. Tonight I hope we can enjoy a fulfilling night, enjoying the talk, the sessions. So in the coming 45 minutes, I'll talk about something that is graph analytics, the applications on anti-money launderings. And this is a real case for a client that is in Sydney at the time I engaged during the March to June during this years. So let's see what I can share with you guys. Let's talk about something about myself first. So this is a picture I taken in Sydney. That is the time I engaged in the 3 months project in Sydney. So I run every day during the time I'm in Sydney after office hour. So it is really a good choice to run in the city. So it is very nice. And I very recommend to run every day, especially you are in a long-term or medium-term engagement, because for 3 reasons. First of all, you will be keeping a good health, and second, you probably will be avoid to go astray, especially in this non-famous. I mean, that is a place that you are not very familiar with. And finally, whenever you upload the tracking records in the Facebook, your family will be knowing that you are healthy or you are still alive. So it saves a lot of time. And officially, I will describe myself a data practitioner. Have 18 years experience doing analytics in different spaces like banking, telco, gaming, and online industries. So I have a master's degree in statistics and graduated as a marketing degree undergrad. And about the talks today, I would like to frame the scope with this slide. So we are talking about AML, visualization, and now. So why particularly I want to mention these key 3 areas that you may know that actually AML is or money laundering is happening everywhere. Many vehicles or means can be vehicles for laundering monies like property, insurance, or investment, even in a betting environment. So you can see that from Reuters, it shows that Macau has introduced new anti-money laundering rules, and so you can see that the topic is really heating up. And some of my clients is because of the Panama paper, they are also required to update their AML system. And secondly, visualization. I have come across an interesting article from Harvard Business Review. So it said that now visual communication is a must-have skill for all managers, because more and more often it's the only way to make sense of the work they do. I completely agree with this work. Particularly with the data science project, no matter how hard you work, finally we have to gain the support from the stakeholder, that is the senior management. We have to have their money so that anything can go on. So it is talking about demonstrations and also some kind of visualization to articulate different concepts in data science. And then the last one, it will be talking about a KD Nuggets pool results. So R remains the leading tools with 45% shares. The reason why I'm not talking about Python today, because we have an expert here. So he's the expert for Python. So I have no room to talk anything about that. And besides, R is actually really, very good tools to make use of for data science. And so I will go into the agenda today. In the coming 45 minutes, I will be going through the backgrounds, challenges, and also the high-level user requirements of such analytics, making use of graph, and then the proposed solution and the implementation highlights. And there will be a demo on the graph analysis prototype. So to begin with, I will share some of the background to you. This is a real case about one of the clients in Australia. So it is a major player in the Australian wagering industry. The annual turnover is talking about 2.2 billion US dollar. So to give things into a context, this is talking about the yearly turnover, half of the yearly turnover of Bank of China, Hong Kong. And because they are applying for an exemption from Austria. So Austria is some kind of a local authority like Hong Kong MA in Australia. So because of the Act 248, they are required to do identification validation for each customers who are doing a transaction of vouchers more than 1,000 US dollar. So in order to exempt such requirement, they need to show their due diligence and also their practices, or that is something that is in place to control and monitor the transaction of vouchers. And another condition is that the company is very aggressive, or they encourage the usage of the in-house data science capability to achieve such platform or mechanism to deal with this AML issues. With such background, we are facing a couple of key challenges. So that is the time constraint. The time constraint is talking about the time we know we need to deploy such a platform to tackle with the anti-money laundering of vouchers. It is the beginning of March. So the local authorities are expecting them to have such a platform and also mechanism by the end of March. So it is talking about a month time to have such achievement. And second, the data science capability is newly established. So that is in the sense that all the data scientists in the company, they are brilliant and also smart. But when it comes to the tight schedule, that will be something that we need to consider. And also, the last one, but I think it is the most crucial one, is that the management have a strong preference, used to be having a strong preference on business consulting firm. Because as we may know that business consulting firm have the advantages that the liabilities will be coming to the endorsement or the doing of the consulting firms once they have agreed on something, or they have some kind of consultants advice. Despite that, they are charging very high. So with this kind of challenge, we will come to some more detailed things and solid things that is about the high-level user requirement from the investigation team, that is particularly the AML team and also the investigation team in the company. So they look for the platform that they can trace or monitor some potential money laundering patterns. Like you can say multiple vouchers combined to a large vouchers, then deposit into an account. Large vouchers split into small vouchers. Vouchers redeemed with certain period of times or days after being sold. or voucher redeemed in geographically different place from where it was sold. And distinguish between vouchers sold as a result of bad meaning to those from cash. And also the trails of vouchers, that is talking about you are buying a vouchers by cash and then you do some bets and then you have some winnings and then cashback, the whole trails. And then identify vouchers where no betting has occurred, ability to be able to block the cashing of voucher in the retail outlets and other miscellaneous report required for the Austria. So you can see that this is what, from the angle of anti-money laundering departments or the units they are looking at. These are not necessarily a money laundering, but it indicates the high risk of having such activities or the potential of such activities. So with such requirement, we propose using the graph analytics. So it is talking about constructing numerous isolated graphs with transaction sections and corresponding activities as vertices and edges. So vertices and edges is something, the pillars of graph, we will be talking about a little bit more later on. And then because of the results of the graph analytics, so we will be able to build up some activity chains to facilitate the monitoring of the money flows between vouchers. So this is another details on the implementations. Data give you a sense on how a data science project to be operationalized in an enterprise level. So from the left-hand side, you can see that the data is nicely updated from source systems to S3. S3 is an Amazon product. You may know that this is a cloud-based storage. And then second, the incremental transaction information will be loaded into an AML schema of a database. So my client is using Redshift, and as you may know that the incremental is a key things because Redshift or database is not for the purpose of handling such a large or the complete whole world of data. So most of the time, data warehouse is designed to be storing data that is for the imminent use or the most frequently used. So there will be the storage of external storage in the cloud being utilized here. And third, the AML data processing scripts apply to generate transaction tables and matrix. So this is talking about some SQL to do some kind of summarize and build up some matrix. Once it is done, the transactions and customer table will be extracted back to the S3. And then the 5, once the data is ready, so it will be loaded into a EC2 or EMR news to process the chain membership. So this is in a sense that, in other words, it is loading to a computation platform where the Sparks or whatever kind of new 4Js that is used to calculate the statistics or derive the variables will be doing. And then 6, the transaction sections to chain identifier. Once it is derived, it will be stored back into the S3. And then 7, the chain ID, that is the key results of the process, will be loaded back to the Redshift for the audit and BI access. And in the bottom part, you can see that number 8 is the snapshot view of the chain with associated data will be loaded into the Elasticsearch. So it is for the quick searching for the AML graph to facilitate such action by the investigation team. And then 9 is saying that the search result will be that there will be a web server cache those kind of results, and eventually there will be a web apps to provide query and interpretation capability. So this is the complete picture of the architect being utilized and planned to do so. So because of the constraint we have mentioned about, we are really out of time and we need to do it quick in an agile manner. So at that time, we took an agile approach that is Scrum. Scrum essentially, that is talking about work stream. Each work stream will be very focused on the particular topics. So you can see that there are 5 Scrum here. The first one, they will be very focused on the business requirement clarification, to talk with the users of the AML team and also the compliance to know what are their requirements and any clarifications. And then the second Scrum will be doing the data definition and cleansing, because the data, not until you work with them, you will never know how messy they will be. There are lots of things to be do on clarifying the data definition of merging, cleansing, whatever you may think of. And then the third one will be the risk design. There is architects and also programmer. They are designing the visualization templates, making use of Plotly and other kind of visualization tools that can be leveraged in enterprise scales. And fourth is the graph building. In here, the engineer is doing their work on Spark in chaining up the data so that it forms the skeletons of the whole work. And the fifth one is the last one, but the most important part is that there should be a role to manage the expectation of the stakeholders. So stakeholders is in this case is the CRO, the Chief Risk Officers, and also his colleagues. This is the first time they take the opportunities or the risk to try to leverage the in-house data science capability instead of the consultancy firm. So for them, this is a great risk. The return will be a very high reduction in the cost and the expenses. And however, as a team of data scientists, we need to make them to live their faith, to buy their trust. So we need to do the kind of demo work so that they may be aware of what are happenings, what will be happenings, and what is it physically look like, or what is the touch and feel of graph analytics. So I said that the graph analysis demo is for the purpose of secure the stakeholders' support. They are all business users, so they talk about revenues and not dollars and return on investments. They don't know what it means for Sparks. They may know a bit about big data, those buzzwords. So it is usual. It is the real world. So our role is how to articulate the information or the concept to them in a layman term so that they may perceive the value of data science in how helping the business. So regarding this graph analysis project demo, just give you some backgrounds. That is the metadata, data on data. So we are talking about different kinds of data source. We make use of the customer data and also the customer accounts. They're talking about the linkage between the customers and the companies. And also, most importantly, is the transactions, anonymous transactions, that is the things that they want to trace. And the venues, what is the transactions being happened. And there are 9 months data being utilized. So in terms of the size is pretty big. And so it is quite a challenge to do the demo in a most efficient way. Before we go into the demo, I think I will better share with you some kind of the data interpretation so that you can have some background and make sense of the things and have some context. So this is a graph illustrating a transaction conduct that is saying, you can imagine that you are sitting in front, or you are standing in front of a machine that can serve you for bettings. So in the first page, you buy a vouchers, and then eventually later you redeem the vouchers, and then buy a ticket, do some bets, and then withdraw the cash. So in here, I would like to illustrate that the x-axis is talking about the time horizons, and the y-axis is talking about the session numbers. So in T1, session number 1, it happens that a customer is buying a vouchers. So in the back-end system, there will be data generated, and a serial code of 111, a hypothetical number, will be assigned to these vouchers. So this is a unique identifier of such vouchers. And then later in T2, in a different sessions, the customer comes to the terminal again. So it's put in the vouchers and then redeem the vouchers. So in the data, we recognize that this is still the same vouchers. In the backend, we have the serial code 111 as well. And then eventually, you buy a ticket, do a bet for X dollars, and then for this betting, there are also a unique serial code generated, it's 112. And subsequently, he withdraw the cash, and then there's another serial code to identify such activities. So you can see that the linking mechanism for the graph is basically the serial code that you can see, even though it is a voucher involving two sessions, number 1 and number 2, we can see the linkage. That is like I'm having a vouchers in session number 1, and then I eventually use it in the session number 2, or I have the voucher and then pass it to another bodies, and then he use it to do some betting. So this is how the fundamental that facilitate the linkage of data. For graph, we need to talk about some basic structure. That is the vertex. So in below, you can see the vertex table. We have 5 kinds of vertex. The session that is anonymous, session that is known, bet, vouchers, and account activities. So they have their unique identifiers and different kinds of properties. Like the session that is anonymous, we know what it is, where is it happening, when is it happening. For the known sessions, because the customer is putting in his account card or membership card, so we may know his identity as well. So this is how the vertices will be used in the graph. And then this is the edge table. Edge table, you can imagine that this is the linkage between vertices. So we have different kinds of edge here. So you can see that that is a session to a voucher. The relationship is talking about a voucher sale. We have the time and the transaction amount of the properties. We have our redeem vouchers, sell ticket, that is talking about when you're betting. Pay ticket, it's talking about when you are winning something, you get back the money. Cancel ticket, and also account deposit, account withdrawals, and bank note inserts. So this is all different kinds of edges. So before looking into this slide, I will be sharing the visualization prototype that I shown to the management. My apologies is that my usual computer that is more powerful is broken down. So most of the, graph itself consumes much of the CPU time. So whenever graph is something that is, essentially you may be not able to perceive how the graph under this platform or the visualization can deliver the value of facilitating search for the investigation team. But anyway, I will show what I have right now. So, in here, I need to further synchronize the screen first. So this is, do you guys know what it is? This should be the tablet, right? Have anyone of you been using these tools? Can you raise up your hand? Okay, so this is really, to me, this is really a nice feature. So it is having nice features. In the sense that in terms of adoption from business user, it is really a high penetration, no matter in Hong Kong or even in other countries. So because of the fancy graph and also the interactive features, that has captured most of the eyeball for the business users. So most of the investment for a companies come from the business users. So IT just adopt what the business is saying. So I can say that Tableau is one of my favorite tools. But the disclaimer is that I'm not paid for the Tableau. So I'm not selling Tableau. I'm not a reseller. HP Enterprise is not a reseller for Tableau, but it is really good to use. And another thing is that maybe you will be aware that Tableau is having an integration with R. So Tableau itself cannot render or construct any graph, essentially. But you can see that the integration makes the possibility become more and more. And many advanced analytics can be deployed and being visualized and do the impact in this platform. And I will begin with some kind of R first, because I mentioned that there will be a little bit R, so at least to show what is R being incorporated here. So this is R. R is making sense in the processes that it takes into the data and then provide the coordinations of those vertices. So how it works, the trick is that in here, there is a calculator field, and when I look into it, you can see that actually it is containing our code here. It is quite simple, but it is just enough to serve the purpose. So it is talking about, we make use of a very nice library that is iGraph. It contains all the features that is necessary to plot graph. And so you can see that it takes in the data as a data frame, and then so it provides different kind of layout for graph plottings or renderings, and then it will returns the coordinations, and in turn the tab will take this result to plot the graph. So this is just a small graph of 1 day of transaction happening in July 1st, 2015. So it may take some time. And the problems of graph, actually this one is used to be doing in a higher performance CPU, so it shouldn't be like that. And then we have the distributed R that we can use on the vertical, so it never happens, actually. And then, so for the graph, we have different vertices. When it is loading, I may make sense of the graph first by introducing some kinds of way how to read it. So we define the vertices with different symbols here. So the triangle represents the account, and the square will be the account, the triangle will be the batch, and cash voucher, anonymous sessions, and then this is the known sessions. And there will be flow of money that is inflow or outflow. And from out, we can calculate the connectedness of each vertex. This is in simultaneous how many other vertices it is connecting. And then it means it implies some important meanings, because usually some sessions, if it is normal, it shouldn't be associated with many activities. But if it is talking about money laundering, there will be a numerous connected voucher redemptions that is facilitating the flow of cash. And then here will be some filters and options for different kind of layout of the graph. And we can also filter out the vertices, filter by the transaction date, and also the connectedness as well. So it is still running, and then let me have a water first. Okay, here we go. So basically, this is a graph. So the problem of graph is that you never know where to begin if you are not having context. So I try to make sense of the things is that because we are talking about transaction times, so you can see that the transaction is talking about 10 morning, and it begins in the 16th, and then eventually it is coming here and then to there. So we need to investigate the graph, and then we'll zoom into that. So let's begin with these sessions. So we can see that this is an anonymous sessions. So if we zoom into that, so you may see that it is all triangles, and then it is talking about bets. So there are quite a number of bets being conducted in these sessions. And then you can see that this is the betting of selling tickets of different amounts. So in green color is saying that the interpretation is that we are selling a ticket. So the money is flowing into the bet tickets. So it is in green. And then in here, you can see that the money source is from the orange line. That is a banknote insert. And so this is a cash insert into these sessions. And also there is another inflow of the cash into the sessions. So you can see that in the same sessions, there is a selling of vouchers. So the there is some selling of tickets and also some kind of banknote interest. So you can imagine that some of the money is used in the bet, and then some of them is being thrown into another vouchers, is buying another vouchers for $10.5. And then these vouchers is then redeemed in later on in 10/16 in another sessions, and then you can see that because he has win some money, there is another pay tickets, inject money into these sessions, and then he buy another vouchers again. So the money flowing out here. And then you can see that star is the vouchers, and then the money goes into another sessions and doing bets. So you can see that from making use of the graph, we are able to trace how the money goes around the sessions. So unfortunately, I have just accidentally pushed some tickets, pushed the buttons. So it will result in an isolated graph, but there won't necessarily, or there won't be the case for just a single vertex happening. You can imagine that you buy vouchers and then you do some bets, then you already have the kind of connection and linkage. So it already be able to have the enough information to plot the graph. So you will anticipate that we have thousands of isolated graphs. And I think I get your question is that the purpose of doing the graph is not to give additional burdens to the investigators, but to facilitate their searching. So in the back end, we will using the SQL that to build up some indicators that is talking about this chain after running it in Spark or whatever. It is involving multi-venues. We have our indicators. It is involving multi-customers, or it is involving transaction more than 1,000. So it will essentially, if in the terms of AML, it will have the kind of alerts being tagged to each chain. And then the chain itself is to give a visual sense of how it is going. And originally, because graph in its raw status is difficult to interpret, so we should have the capability to prune the graph. Just like we will just look into the session that is having high connectedness. So you can see that connectedness can be 84 here. So there will be some threshold to help determining what is to be investigated in first priority and second priorities. So I think that answers your question, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So in here, this is to say that showing just in a one day different kinds of the trail of the vouchers and also betting among different sessions. So when it comes to 2 days, how it will look like? So it will become more and more complex. So if 3 days is talking about this kind. Okay, 4 days, just 4 days. It is all talking about the anonymous transactions related to this within these days. So they are all connected because of bet, because when you have a bet and then you have some win and then you have another sessions getting the money, and if you buy a voucher and then redeem in another place, so they are all connected together. So that is to say that the key essence is not to overload the front line with this kind of visual aid. We need to have the features like the filterings and also the kind of highlighting features, like if we would like to look into just beds, or if we would like to just look into where cash or vouchers, or even what is the session that is node. So, sorry for the incapable of being demonstrated all the full features for the graph with this capability. And then I can say that this is almost the end of my presentations. And I'll give the mic to Mark.
Thanks, Isaac. Thanks so much for the talk. So at this point, we're going to hand it over to the floor for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes of Q&A. So any questions that you have? All right, let me just, before we hand over the mic. A lot of you have expressed an interest in money laundering. Yeah. Just to remind you that this is the anti-money laundering talk.
Very interesting talk. I was just wondering, what was your representation for the graphs? Like, how did you represent it? Like, as a dot frame, which is not particularly efficient for how graphs could be represented on a large scales, at least. And did you have to use a different representation for a graph database and kind of convert that into a dot frame before you visualize or did some kind of analysis? And what kind of outlier detection did you use? That's the second part of the question, which kind of ties into your representation, is what is your outlier detection strategy? And you mentioned some things like connectedness and filtering based on that early on. So any other algorithms that you use so that you narrow in on the interesting cases? Thank you.
So for the first question, that is talking about the enterprise scales of such analytics. For the rendering of graph, the team make use of the software called Putty. This is a Java-based software. So basically, they based on the results from the Sparks that is being done on the EC2s. So there won't be that kind of problems for such of data lagging or whatever.
I meant the data structure of your graphs rather than what you use for visualization.
Okay, so Neo4j is some kind of tools that has been proposed, but because of the cost concern from the clients, so they never consider such implementation. So it is being used in the Spark, and then that is how they are dealing with the situations. And then the second thing is that you're asking for the algorithm, is it?
Or a general idea, not necessarily the whole algorithm.
Yeah. So in the algorithm, we make use of the algorithm in the R and also in the SparkX in operationalize the things. And then because in order to show the informations, we need to populate the information on a geographic manner as well, so that we can make sense of the things in a geographic manner that is talking about the voucher is traveling from venue to venue. So the graph is one of the tools to facilitate the such of searching, I can say.
Yeah, go for it. This is an investigative tool, right? So people are using this to look back and sort of reconstruct a situation, right? Yeah. Or does it tie in with any predictive analysis or
I think it serves the purpose of the former one. So based on the rule being defined, just as mentioned, that voucher transaction will involve many venues or many customers, or that is large amount being involved. So they trim down the graph, the isolated graph need to investigate. And then because sometimes the money laundering is not yet happening, so they will store the graph in the backend system, so that the graph will be evolving continuously until the time they trigger some of the alerts. So this serves as a means for them to keep track of possible anti-money laundering on top of the transactional-based money laundering tools. There, within the graph, there is not a node mentioning known transactions or known users. So the thing is that if I can go into the day of 26, you will see unknown sessions is eventually connected with the rest of the graph. And it is because in the first 25 days, all the bettings or all the voucher transactions are in an anonymous manner, maybe because of his careless, he deposit or withdraw the cash by account. So the whole thing is linked up, and then we can trace back that to individual customers. So your question is valid because it is not shown, but it is not because it is not there. It is because of the visual defects are not being shown.
Thanks a lot. Just going back quickly to what somebody else actually said. So I wasn't quite sure if you actually were using it for predictive analytics or not. And if you are or might be planning to, are you guys storing like a database of known fraud transactions and known graphs that represent fraud or other kind of money laundering?
So essentially, when the next steps of the client is that to try to look into the structure of the graph and then try to see if there is any similar patterns between graph. And then, so this can serve as a basis for the prediction of a likelihood of certain kind of anti-money laundering activities. So that is the second phase of the implementation of such projects. But in this meanwhile, this is only for the investigation purpose.
So other than the visualization and the representation, do you apply any graph-specific algorithm to analyze the data, for example, to calculate the sparsity, small world, or betweenness centrality, that kind of graph-specific stuff to kind of like review certain pattern of your data?
So there is many structures or properties, just as you mentioned, that betweenness, connectedness, and also the sparsity. But back to the use case for this project. So we did not have the necessity yet to call for such analysis, but that will certainly be put into in the coming phases.
How much money laundering is there in casinos?
So I think that if you are talking about money laundering in a casino, the best you can refer to will be from Google instead of me.
Any other questions? Alex, no question for you.
From your experience and in other projects, how do you see this techniques or what you have done can be applied to other different types of projects?
In my personal opinion, I think that graph analytics have many applications, not just limited to anti-money launderings. Like you can try to imagine in the retail industries, the purchase behavior of customers. You can render graph of customers, be it anonymous or unknown transactions. Sometimes you will pay with credit cards. Sometimes you will use a membership card. Sometimes you will just use the cash. But essentially, with this kind of linkage, you can form a more complete picture of retail customers on how they are buying. So you can serve this as a basis for the prediction of the buying behavior in the retail-based space as well. And also, in government sectors, like the one I have been serving is the airport authorities. So they would like to enhance the efficiency of the baggage handling systems. So I think that will be troubling all of you, right? That taking the bags take a long time. So you can make use of the graph and then to model how long from place to place it takes on average that our baggage need to be moving. And then, so you can make predictions or comparisons to see if there are deviations from norms or whatever. So there are lots of space for application for graph analytics, actually.
All right.
Do you monitor the money laundering in real time, or is it batch?
Okay.
So before answering the questions, I will back to the purpose of such projects. Because this is not a fraud detections, like credit cards or the kind of transaction you need to in a real time. So in here, despite we have the capability or in general, the technology have the capability to do it in real time, but it is to align with the working practices of the company, so they do it in a weekly manner. And the data is doing on a nightly update, so it can be increased to a daily manner as well. So it depends. So I think the key things is whenever the speed of update or the provision of data will depends on the necessity or the use cases.
Hi, I have a question in terms of referring back to your comment on clients making a leap of faith from consulting to using data. How do you see that moving forward, and whether you see partnerships between traditional consulting and data scientists or other forms of cooperation, possibly?
So in the real pictures, consulting firm is having strength in business consulting. But most of the time, they will also work out the project with the implementation part. So it is the current practice that they will layering the jobs, like the consulting firm, business consulting firm will give the layer of business consultancy, and then the partnership with different technology vendors or partners to take the implementations. So it is already the ecosystem on the consulting environments. So we may have the business consulting and then the IT consulting firms and other vendors, so to make the things happen.
Any final questions here in the front rows? No? No? All right.
Any lesson learned from using AWS, and how will it contrast with on-premise servers, or anything you learned from that project?
So, talking about technologies, from my perspective is that as I'm acting as a consultant, that the main purpose is to accelerate the changes. So most of the times we will be looking into the existing architectures of what they are doing. So there is no way that we can propose architects or stuff like vertical from my company or whatever to replace their Redshift or whatever. So I think the technology itself is quite indifferent to us. And then for the Amazons, I think the key thing is that you may not be able to enjoy it. For the cloud, it is not happening in Hong Kong. So I think that is quite a limit for us in the Hong Kong markets.
And I guess that's all the time we have for Q&A. So another big round of applause for Isaac.
Thanks a lot, really. Thanks a lot.
And also thank you to General Assembly. They've sponsored the venue tonight, as they usually do. They're kicking off a data science immersive program in just 2 weeks' time, which is a full-time 3-month program where you go from nothing to becoming a data scientist. They've got, I think, 96% placement rates after you finish a bootcamp with them. So if you're keen to transition into a data science position, be sure to talk to them. Unfortunately, I have some bad news. The consultancy that I run, we're hiring again. I was so happy last month that we were like kind of rounded out with the team, but now we're looking for some junior people again. So if you already are a data scientist and you're looking for some work, come talk to me afterwards. For everyone else, there's drinks, sponsored by the consultancy as well. So enjoy the drinks, and I hope to see you again next month. Thanks you all for coming.
I'm working on the architecture of logistics perspective.